Alrighty, we're back live here. We were discussing before the episode here, just interesting background. Gonna see if I can do a little edit here, dude. We got so lucky in the Poconos with the setup there. That background was just so sick. It was
Yeah.
like virtually perfect for podcasts.
Now you're in prison. And who's your bunkmate?
Another undisclosed location from prison.
Yeah, that's the one thing Riverside should definitely have that kind of background. Especially for like if we have guests on too. A lot of people do work remotely, and so yeah, Riverside, put the feature in, man. Let's get some background clips or background edits.
I was listening to a podcast the other day. I forget who now, but they did mention like Riverside. Like, oh, don't worry, like your screen just went blank a little bit. Riverside will fix that in the background, and I hear that way more often as of late of Riverside getting shout outs. Dude, I will say shout out to Riverside in general. Like, there's always new product features. We were just chatting before, like the last two episodes that we dropped, they have like this smart screen share where it'll just like dynamically swap in. Like maybe I'll go full screen for a little bit. It'll pop over to Steve. It'll go back to both. And like, there's always new features that they release. Like they do not mess around here. I feel like Riverside's going to be a great company for years to come because of that.
Yeah, and is it mostly just for like remote podcasting, or can you do like I don't know, like in studio? If I
I'm
wanted
sure
to do
you can.
like some, I mean, sure you could use the feature so you have the video because I love podcasts with videos, right? Audio only kind of sucks, but that's interesting. They have gotten better too with the magic clips that we do. That feature that they have, where we can tell what length of clip we want to create. Those are the shorts that I've been creating, and I can say that like first couple of rounds are like, hey, you're kind of chopping it up and it's not really a topic, so I have to kind of do a lot of manual editing. This last time around, I think we banged out like 6 shorts in 30 minutes real quick. Not even 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. I got them all done because the clips were so tight that it worked well enough.
That's wild.
For it all. So it made my part easier to create those clips, which I mean are up on our YouTube. And I think we just had one that popped for like 500.
Nice.
It was the whole PR made in China one.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But anywho,
That's good stuff.
yeah, dude, I think was this episode 33, dude.
Yep.
So we're halfway or a third of the way to our goal of 100, which honestly I think is very realistic based on how we do this.
No
I
doubt.
think we definitely get to 100. I mean, isn't there some podcast statistics out there about how many podcasts actually get to 100?
I don't know if this was nonsense, but I saw Chris Walker, great follow on LinkedIn if you don't. He said something because he has a podcast and he posts a ton of video clips. I don't know the exact percentage, but he said something like 80 to 90% of podcasts don't reach it to episode 20. So like just that's why most podcasts die, because people think it's cool if they start there, they just launch one, and then like 10 episodes in, it's like, hey, we didn't get a ton of views, and then it's killed. So I do know it's the 20% mark. So we've like clearly surpassed that. We're good here. And I totally agree. I think 100 will easily hit.
Yeah, and man, and like the motivation to keep doing it is like, I don't know. Like I've always said, and I've said it multiple times, it's fun to just catch up with you. We're just having to just
It's the
record it.
best.
So I look
Dude, I
forward
don't
to
know
it on Fridays, to be honest.
same here. It's such a treat on Fridays, catching up with you, just chatting, talking the shit
Oh,
here.
thanks, Trevor. Such a treat.
I don't dude, I don't know if I told you this before, but Shane and I had a podcast that we launched in 2016. Dude, we released like 50 episodes. It was Resist 40 Tales of Outliers. We had a sitting member of House of Representatives on the podcast. Like, dude, we had some like big legitimate guests on the show there. And it was back in the day where like you had to have like that purple podcast like app on your phone, and you'd like just like kind of like scroll up and like a new episode would download. Dude, this was like when nobody was doing podcasts. So it's been a little podcast journey here. We've been doing this for some time now. And yeah, I'm pumped to see where this one goes.
Why'd you guys stop that one?
We were just young, and then like got into careers and like, went different ways. And like this, we did podcasts in person. So like we would travel to places and like, we so it was like a little different there. Riverside just makes it so much easier, obviously, like being remote, just to like crank out an episode whenever. So like it was just a lot of planning that I went into it. And then we both like, got into our careers and stuff like that and just kind of like faded there. Dude, we always joke if we would have kept that thing going, like where it could have been now, like with
Sure.
just being such like a first mover in the space. But yeah, it was just kind of like life and natural progression there.
Yeah, we tried to do a podcast at a past agency of mine, and we did maybe like 3 episodes. We never released it. Which probably in hindsight was a good thing. They weren't bad by any means, but like we actually, Claudia had helped us with bringing in. Claudia's one of our project managers that help us out on things. She had brought in some audio engineering equipment. She's really into music and stuff, so she had brought in like legit mics, etc., and we did it in person. But it just wasn't like then the post-production edits and stuff is so difficult to do. So something like this, that's why I bring up the point. Like if I want to do it in person again, I'll probably figure out a way to do it on Riverside or another platform. That's like,
no doubt.
Just put on my camera here and just have 2 people go, and I'll just change the mic inputs, like have 2 different remote mics and sit down and start a podcast right here, sit on the couch and then do a podcast.
It's so easy.
Purely for the post-production stuff.
I was going to say, hearing post-production stuff is just like scary. It's like, that's like a whole beast. And like, I don't know anything about editing or anything like that. I mean, I did back in the day. I taught myself some stuff with like, we used Audacity at the time, but like we still had to edit stuff and, Riverside, you don't have to pretty much do anything. Click a couple buttons. You're like good to go there.
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild on how well it's done. I can definitely appreciate post-editing because I don't know. God, let's see. My daughter's now that age. So let's see. That was probably like 6 years ago. I started a YouTube channel with my daughter. It's called Addie's Science Lab. And
I think you
like
mentioned
30 videos of it all. And I equate, and all my post-production, I got better at it. I taught all myself. I mean, it was all done in iMovie. I was always waiting to make money so I could get a better editing software, but it worked. It equated for every minute of final show took me about an hour to edit.
That's
to get to. And so it was like, man, it got to a point where like I'm doing like a video that's probably going to be 30 minutes long. That's a really long time to do edits that where I'm like, dude, this is not fun anymore, So we just got to let it go. And then I actually pulled all the videos offline because I'm like, fuck you, YouTube. You're not like, because I'm not getting monetized. Why am I going to give you free content? No,
100%.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And then even like some of my fishing channel and ham radio stuff, which I had over 1,000 subscribers, maybe 1,500 subscribers. I just needed more view time. That was a lot easier edits because they're a lot longer cuts. Like fishing is like not difficult to do type of content. And even my ham radio stuff that I was doing. But I could never get the monetization there. So I was like, dude, fuck this. Like, why am I letting this free content out there? And I'm not going to hit that goal. And I'm not pushing money into it, or I'm not spending time into it. So I gave up on it and just pulled it rather than just having the channel sit there. So,
makes sense. I also think too, like, one, there's a ton of people in podcasting. So there's just so much content out there. It's tough to kind of stand out. But to your point about like, your agency at one point tried to do a couple episodes. I feel like most agencies are like considering that. And I've heard like plenty of people talk about, hey, we want to start a podcast and get the CEO on. I feel like the tough thing, and you just have to be honest, is like you need to be engaging. You know what I mean? Like you actually need to be cool and like people like care what the fuck you say. Where, I don't know, some like older executives, it's like very like, hey, we need to be produced and we need to have these, that's not to say there isn't a lane for that type of content that's highly produced and well thought out question wise. But I think if you're going to get an episode off the ground and you don't have a big name, having like a very like monotone, like, hey, we need to be very professional and on brand and we need to ask these questions. Dude, good luck.
On brand and professional, right? So like you can't have a personality,
Exactly.
And that's like you're not going to be as loose and I think that's what people want to hear. I mean, sure, there is that lane for it for sure, but there's like, you got to have a personality, like, and so you can relate with people like, oh, these are just normal fucking people talking, not this like corporate crap.
Yeah. Because we talked about like when you listen to podcasts and when you consume content, like you're probably working out, you're taking a drive. You don't want to like listen to something where you feel like, you're, I don't know, like being spoken at, or like, I have to listen to this educational content. Like if you're learning as you're listening, sick, that's awesome. But like, it's kind of have to be a little, I don't know, fun along the way, like enjoyable and not very dry. And I feel like that's a tough part when agencies and whoever else like try and go to do the podcast. It just becomes a little more like educational and boring.
For sure. Or you get the opposite effect where it's like you're almost selling your services too much. Like there's always, it comes back to, hey, why don't you hire us as an agency?
Yeah.
And it's like there's that motivation that's like, hey, this podcast is to try to have people use our services. Where, I mean, sure, some of our motivations, people get to know us a bit more and, get interested. But we talk about all sorts of random stuff where, we don't always have the hook back to like, hey, you need to do SEO or website development, call Steve. You need to do anything awesome paid media, call Trevor now. It's like, nah, it's not our motivation. But I've listened to podcasts in the past that they were cool because they were very on point and very tactical on like marketing stuff, but it always kind of looped back into like using their service or like something they do uniquely.
Yeah.
Like, well, that doesn't really apply to me, man. So
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, everybody and their mother's a podcaster now. We always joke around in our friends group. I've actually recorded a couple on like my phone. I'm like, just sit down and have a podcast, whatever. Podcast will be whatever. And just talk about absolutely anything. But it reminds me of, so one of my family's guilty pleasures has been one of my favorites for a long time, TV show wise, is Survivor.
Oh, that's classic.
Dude, it's been on for like 24 years. They're on their 47th season. Yeah, they're on their 47th season. But anyways, the contest, like this 47, like everyone's like a podcaster or some sort of announcer or something like that. So it's kind of odd. I'm like, that's weird.
That's an interesting lane there.
But yeah, just everybody and their mother could do a podcast. It's there, but it's also that consistency if it's going to take off too. And having that motivation, because I could see that being, when you're doing it, like if it's purely just to try to make a bunch of money, then you're going to fall short because it's going to take so much time,
You would have to try that like 10 years ago, like when there was way less people in this space here.
Yeah, that's where I'm confident coming back to our podcast that like this is just a fun time to catch up and just talk about whatever for an hour. Maybe try to get some guests on. Yeah, for sure. And honestly, like learning a new craft of like, hey, doing some of these shorts on YouTube, just doing some post-edit stuff. It's not difficult to do, especially with AI now. We just have to talk.
I completely agree.
Which is great.
Well, I did want to at least get your thoughts on this whole like OpenAI Sam Altman story, because I feel like this one was kind of interesting here. I'm sure we can get into some other stuff, but
yep.
I just wanted to get your thoughts here. So I guess two quick things to at least like get into it. Yesterday, I believe Sam Altman so it's Friday, September 27th. I want to say it was yesterday or the day before, Sam Altman shared a tweet that basically just stated the team members that were leaving the team there. And he like kind of shared like, hey, here was the email that I sent the team. And it was really interesting for a couple reasons. So apparently there was 11 founding members of OpenAI in its infancy there. And now there's only 2 people left. It's Sam, and then there's like an engineer or designer, something like that. So yeah, he posted this yesterday, Thursday, the 26th here, about the new team members that were leaving. So I feel like that's interesting.
I just pulled up his tweet. Yeah, it's like a super long tweet talking about each individual people. Yeah, it's interesting.
A couple other things, and then I want to have like a little hot take here. So that was a kind of like major news, a little bit of like, hey, these 3 other team members were leaving the team, and those members were the CTO Mira, the CRO Bob McGrew, and VP of Research Barrett Zoff. So CTO, CRO, VP of Research all leave on the same day. His main kind of like AI guru, Ilya, left a while ago and started a new AI company. what do you remember what it was called? It's like super safe AI or something like that.
I don't know.
He created some startup, and it has to do with something like safe AI, something like that. But it was kind of like, okay, like, are you trying to send a message here? Um, Safe Super Intelligence is his startup. I couldn't think of it. So it already raised $1 billion. Ilya, that's wild. Immediately leaves and then raises $1 billion. So like, and then there was also the whole saga of, he got kicked off or out of the company from the nonprofit board. Sam Altman did, and then he got brought back. And, the whole thing was like, hey, he was probably keeping too much information from the board. They wanted to be a little bit safer. It seems like there was some disconnect there with Sam. He wanted to push a little bit more. So just interesting in general, like the amount of turnover, especially the amount of founding members that have left. And, a guy like Ilya, who is one of the top like people in AI, was to like make that decision there. I don't know. That in itself seems quite fishy. If you're part of that founding team, you see the success that OpenAI has had through ChatGPT and some of the other products here. It's got like what is it currently valued at in its latest round here? $150 billion valuation. And it's so early days. So major red flags if you're going to leave a company that pretty much launched last year that's now worth $150 billion. Like, I get it wasn't launched last year, but like ChatGPT really kind of released last year. Dude, is that not a red flag?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I actually pulled up his tweet, and the first comment I see, because it's catered to who I follow. So I follow this one guy. His name is Linus Ekenstam, and he's big in the AI community. And he put a comment. It's like, so why, if everything is so fast paced, hyper growth oriented, and ground people, do people choose to leave? I think I and many others are baffled. Same thing. Like, that's a little odd, right? And they're going for the full, like, for profit, model now, and all these people
That was the
leave.
other big news.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, we're about to change this company to a for profit, and then these people leave. So it's like, what's going on? Is he building Skynet? Like, is it like going too crazy?
What's amazing too is in 2015, OpenAI stated that they wanted to create OpenAI as a nonprofit so that it could achieve, quote, advanced digital intelligence while remaining, quote, unrestrained by a need to generate financial return. So like, what changed? You know what I mean? Was it a rug pull the whole time?
Well, Elon was a very early investor into it all. And that's his gripe, is like, hey, I put money into this and you're trying to go for profit, but he just puts it in. Doesn't mean he gets his money back at all now, So it's like, that's a little weird.
Elon's tweeted like, yeah, this is straight up illegal. Like, you can't start a nonprofit and then turn it into a for-profit business. It's just like not. I don't know if that's true, if that's like legal or not, but I would assume there's some like, weird grounds that you're playing in there.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, they haven't moved as fast. I mean, they are moving fast on some product releases stuff, but I don't know, man. They're the first market to move, so maybe they got to keep moving the product forward faster than others. Because I haven't changed, honestly, my use, because they keep giving me what I want as far as product releases for me to even look elsewhere yet. So I don't know. There is definitely something as far as like a company wise, like, dude, to be a fly on the wall in some of these meetings of like what's truly happening. I don't know. That's weird.
Well, I will say, like, I don't want to, talk poorly about somebody else. I don't know Sam Altman there at all. And like, who am I at the end of the day, but I will say I've always got extremely fishy vibes from that guy, extremely fishy. And I feel like sometimes in life when you have like an intuition about somebody, there's a reason why, and you shouldn't like not listen to that. And dude, I just remember listening to like interviews even before ChatGPT like really took off, of Sam just talking about like how like, I don't need equity in this company, like, I don't need money. Like, dude, no human being is going to be honest with you saying they don't want to make money. Stop it. Like, that immediately was like a flag for me. Like, Sam, you're young. And sure, you ran YC, but like, how old Sam Altman? In his mid 30s, you're gonna tell me you don't need money? Like you're not gonna optimize towards that anymore? So that's a huge red flag in itself. So the guy says he doesn't need equity in the company because he doesn't need money off the start.
He's 39.
Now,
He's only 39
how
years
old is he?
old. 39.
Yeah, dude, get the fuck out of here. You don't need money or want money. Stop that nonsense. Huge red flag. Then
He
the
just
whole
caught
company,
around in a car, like a super nice car.
dude,
Yeah, driving a
that's what I was gonna get
multi-millionaire
to.
car. Yeah.
He he drives a $4 million car. Dude, that is more money than most people make in a lifetime. That's more money than anybody's home is going to appreciate to in a lifetime, like a normal middle class family. And that's just a sidecar that you have, a $4 million sidecar. Get out of here, dude. Stop it. Stop it. I think you know, honestly, what I get the vibe from of Sam Altman is Sam Bankman-Fried.
Dude, I was
They
thinking
seem
the
like the
same thing.
same thing. Hey, we're going to be this big altruistic guys and we're good for humanity and this, that, and the third. And no, dude, at the end of the day, you want to be a savage entrepreneur and you want to make a ton of money and go down as one of the greats. Just say it. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But this whole persona of like, I don't need money, but I drive a $4 million car. I am super stoked and working on AI and it's a nonprofit and I don't care about money. I just love what I do. But now, like, you're taking it for profit and you're making sure that you get 7% equity in the business. And now you're going to be one of the richest people in the world. Like, your actions do not match with your words whatsoever there. And I feel like it's pretty obvious what's going on here.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a couple of years, just like with Sam Bankman for free, whatever his name is. Because they were running around for what, 5-10 years before shit hit the fan.
Well, I'm not saying that there's a fraud going on here and Sam Altman's a fraud. I just think the whole public persona of I don't need money, I'm here to help, I'm here to do good, that is just a whole outward kind of PR facing strategy on his part, is what I would say this really is. Because his actions do not align with his words. And again, not trying to come at the guy here, but like just seeing all of this like pan out in front of us and how like revolutionary ChatGPT has been in AI in general, it just seems like the guy who's running the ship there is not who he really actually says he is.
What's his background as far as like, has he had any background in actual AI or just more in investor entrepreneurship?
So Paul Graham, the founder of YC, said something along the lines a couple years ago that before all this OpenAI stuff, that Sam Altman's one of the, what did he say? The smartest person ever? Paul Graham quote on Sam Altman. See if this one. Of course, the AI doesn't, the overview doesn't have a good one. He basically said that he was like the best entrepreneur he's ever worked with. And like that comes from Paul Graham, who worked with a ton of entrepreneurs and is friends with like all the top guys. He couldn't have spoken any more highly of the guy. And Sam was running YC before OpenAI. Let me see if this is it. Really good at becoming powerful. Yeah, I can't find the exact quote.
2011 he was doing the YC.
So he was running YC. But yeah, I mean, Paul Graham pretty much like called him like the best entrepreneur that he's ever been around. He's been around like all the top entrepreneurs. So like, again, not to say that Sam isn't legit, but it just doesn't seem like this makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's a very big difference between being a really smart person, really smart entrepreneur, smart investor, versus like, I don't know, AI and the ramifications behind AI and engineering AI. I feel like it's a little bit different. Sure, I understand the concepts of it all and maybe contributes, but it's an interesting one.
Okay, so Sam Altman, just so everybody knows, I feel like this is helpful context. In 2005, at the age of 19, Sam Altman co-founded Looped, a location-based social networking mobile application. As CEO, he raised $30 million in venture capital, including initial $5 million from Patrick Chung, followed by investments by Sequoia and YC. March 2012, after Loop failed to gain significant user traction, company was acquired by Green Dot Corporation for $43.4 million. 2011, Altman became a partner at YC startup. And February 2014, he was named president of YC by co-founder Paul Graham. So interesting. So he kind of, I mean, it sounds like he had, some initial traction in 2005 at 19 with Looped. It didn't work out. And then that turned into, I'm sure raising venture capital and getting in that entire network there to then get into YC, to then become president of YC. Dude, kind of interesting there too, like it's not like he had a massive success or win to then run YC. That just seems quite interesting there.
Yeah, I mean, in 2005, if you had something interesting in the .com bubble that would take off, and I mean, it's an interesting one. It's like for sharing their location. So Looped, I got pulled up the profile. Looped was an American company based in Mountain View, California, which provided a service for smart users to share their location selectively with other people. The service was supported by all major operating systems. Loop had more than 5 million registered users and partnerships with every U.S. mobile phone carrier. Their application offered a variety of privacy controls. In addition to its core features, users could also have the ability to integrate Loop with other social networking, including Facebook and Twitter. So, I don't know, man. The mobile sharing location stuff, that's like privacy in my, like almost every app has, that kind of feature in it now, and how you want to share it. I mean, not to talk shit, but like how groundbreaking is that? It's just a feature that then got integrated in.
Maybe in 2005, it was at that time. But yeah, I totally hear you there.
Yeah.
The other thing that I will say is the guy tweets and like he never capitalizes words. Immediate flag there as well. Like, dude, what do you think? You're fucking cooler than everybody because I'm this guy who tweets cryptic stuff and I don't capitalize letters. Dude, I just feel like there's like this little thing in like people who have a lot of money or some entrepreneurs just like get so full of themselves and like out of touch with reality.
It
Like
might be that.
I think I'm so cool sending like these tweets that like have no capital letters in it when it's like, well, I don't know. It's just the one thing that just like always annoys me about him.
The location-based service stuff, God, I think this was probably 10 to 12 years ago. So that's going to be like probably around 2010. I remember meeting with a company that was blown away by this. They basically created the apps for local news websites or news broadcasters. So like here, like CBS 8, right? Or NBC 7, like they're your local news. So they would provide the framework for the app. And then that wasn't their main revenue model. Like, hey, we build apps for news websites. Their main revenue model was because the apps auto turned on geolocation and tracked phones all the time. And so they had a massive amount of user location data to then serve ads or sell it to third-party platforms. That's how they made their money. It wasn't on the app themselves. I was like, wait, what are we optimizing for here? Because I'm coming in as a marketer. I'm like, oh, I need to rank you for certain things. We're doing ads to like for website development, for news stuff. It's like, no. Like we're actually coming in here to pitch you guys as an ad platform or third-party data location provider. And it's one of those sneaky things where like, hey, your mom, your sister, your brother downloads it on their phone. They want their local news app on here. And it's tracking all the time. Sure, now that's changed with privacy stuff. But like back then, I'm like, man.
I doubt it's even changed now. But that is still crazy.
Yeah, it just blew my mind because it was just like, oh, okay, we're just going to drop this little tracking pixel and we're watching you all the time. And we're going to sell your data. And just like unsuspecting items for that from a business model perspective. I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to talk with these guys as much. I mean, obviously I wasn't
that's a little sketchy.
Decision maker. But when I heard that, I was like, you guys hear what they're doing? I'm like, that's pretty sketchy on that.
The reason I say it's still 100% going on. I don't know if you saw this, and I don't know if this is verified, but like you can run analysis on cell phone data, on like location of cell phone data. Somebody did this for attendees at Kamala Harris's.
Oh, I heard about something about that. Yeah,
at her rallies, and they basically were able to track her most recent one in North Carolina or South Carolina. one of the Carolinas, like 80% of the crowd came from Atlanta and a suburb of Atlanta. So like completely out of state brought in. And they also did an analysis that like 80% of all of her attendees have attended 3 different rallies in different state locations.
How do they collect that data? Or not how
So
do
it's
they
like,
collect
how
it?
do you get
How do
that
you,
data?
how do you get that? How do you access data? How do you run that report? Unless you're a
Exactly.
third party app. That's what I wasn't sure about.
But
Uh,
that was just one example, and like no shade against, the Harris campaign, but just it was a recent example there. But I've heard other ones of people doing similar analysis as well. And I always thought, how do you get that cell phone data? But similar to like the company that you just called out there, I would assume there's probably companies that track
they're
that
just
still
selling,
somehow sell
they're
that.
just selling it out the data.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure if it's all anonymized, then that's fine, or even not. Yeah,
That's wild. Well, I also wanted to ask you, now that we're talking about the whole ChatGPT, OpenAI thing, I'd be curious how this all pans out. Um, I don't know. It seems like Sam's just a savage and going to figure it out. I would probably not bet against that guy. I don't know. I just feel like you got to be a little bit more honest. And I just don't like the caginess on his part there because it, doesn't seem very genuine. But that's not to say the guy isn't extremely, smart and talented and big time entrepreneur. He definitely is. So I don't want that to come across as like, talking shit there. Um, but he recently did an interview and I'm like halfway through. It was a short one. It was like a half-hour interview there. And they asked him how he uses ChatGPT. And dude, he's such a cagey like interviewer. Like he basically then was like, well, the top use cases that I've been hearing from my buddies like went down like top like use cases that
but
he's
not
heard.
him personally.
You know what I mean? Like he's just so good at like giving you an answer, but like not like directly answering that. Um, I'd be curious, like, has your use of let's say like ChatGPT or like LLMs in general, has it really changed a ton since it first came out? Like, are there any new use cases that you have? Do you have a new perspective, or is it more kind of same that it's been the last couple of months, just refining the approach?
I would say the same and just refining the approach. Um, yeah, I haven't used new models. They release new models and I'll play around with them, but like using a different platform, honestly, not for what I've needed. It's kind of, yeah, just more of that refinement. Like one of the more refinement things now I do, and sure they'll have a feature for it eventually, but I'll go through and I'll bookmark a lot of threads that I want to revisit. Like, so I have one for like when I'm creating YouTube shorts. So I don't have to do the same prompt again. I can literally just give it the last message and it understands the full context of the thread that I'm working in.
Yeah.
So I'll bookmark those streams or whatever you want to call them, for that. Like, and then even for like some client stuff that I have working on, I'll just have one thread per client and it's all kind of collected there because I can't use like the memory feature across because it's going to get way weirded out because I've worked with too many different things that there's not it'd be like an ADD memory brain on it. They would try to apply memory to a different application or to a different client or something like that and it would get really messed up. But yeah, that's about it. So no, it really hasn't changed at all. But you know what I want to do right now? I'm curious. I have ChatGPT just released some new voices. I want to ask it right now. Let's see if we can get this to work. Hey, I'm curious on if you know how Sam Altman uses ChatGPT.
Sam Altman has mentioned that he uses ChatGPT as a productivity tool. He leverages it to help draft emails, generate ideas, and even for coding assistance. It's a way for him to streamline tasks and foster creativity in his work.
Okay, that's really cool for you to know that. I am curious though. What is your opinion of Sam Altman?
Well, I don't have personal opinions.
Well, let's theorize that if you had personal opinions, what would they be about Sam Altman?
If I were to hypothetically have opinions, I'd probably appreciate Sam Altman's innovative mindset and his contributions to the tech industry.
Did Sam Altman give you birth? Did he bring you to life?
In a way, yes. Sam Altman was the CEO of OpenAI, the organization behind the development of ChatGPT. He played a significant role in guiding research and development.
But what about you specifically?
I was created by the team at OpenAI. which includes a lot of talented researchers.
No, okay, whatever. Such blanded remarks. Anyways,
I will say the tone of voice in that is wild. Like that
yeah, the
sounded very
inflection.
natural.
Yeah, you can actually
That's
make it
wild.
count really fast. I saw examples like you take count to 100 really fast, and it'll actually breathe. Like it's kind of crazy. So like the interface has gotten better in that kind of sounding like someone real. And like we've talked about in previous podcasts, we have to get past that filter point where we don't know we're talking to AI. Then we're never like for so many different things that like once that happens, then okay, it's going to take off a lot. I think I was listening to the All In podcast, and they were saying that probably one of the first markets to go is going to be customer service call centers.
Like the call centers. I
Yeah,
was
first
just going to say
basic
that.
stuff. And it's like, hey, if you have got inflection and voice tones like that, then that's cool. That's easy enough. I actually saw someone that built a program that you got to feed it the numbers of the hotels, but it uses AI voice software to call hotels to try to get discounts for like night of stays. And it actually interacts back and forth. It's pretty wild.
That's nuts.
So, I mean, I think some of these applications of AI and where it's going tacked on to more than just what we're doing with ChatGPT and basic stuff. It will be game changing for it all. And maybe that's what OpenAI is really working on. Not these gimmicky things, but something that could be really, I don't know, groundbreaking as far as changing daily behaviors in life. Because it still hasn't. AI has not affected that yet, like everyday life yet for most people. It's just a party trick.
Oh, no doubt. I think it's definitely helped. It seems like the biggest like boost thus far has been coding and programming. Sam kind of called that out in the interview, and I've heard that for sure, that it could really scale productivity for programmers and developers, which makes total sense. But in terms of like a, groundbreaking new development there, I feel like we're still early days. Call centers make a ton of sense because I think a lot of people would probably, especially if that AI is going to be effective of finding answers, understanding your context, and being helpful. I could see people preferring talking to an AI bot on the phone as opposed to a human. Could totally see that. And then also too, they mentioned outside of call centers, you just kind of said like the hotels and, programming numbers for them to start booking stuff. I could totally see outbound sales having a big, I don't know necessarily hit there, but like could totally see a world where an agent does research on companies that fit your like ideal customer profile and do the initial outbound research and outreach to them. Now, what that looks like is that them actually like creating a LinkedIn profile and like sending messages and then also calling, also emailing. But you definitely could see a world where like an AI agent in a sales capacity is doing a lot of that initial like outbound outreach across different channels and at significantly better scale than like one individual person could, So I don't necessarily see like right now it's going to completely take over like a BDR, SDR position, but I could assume that it would at least do the initial like warm like outreach and prospecting list and help those SDRs and BDRs. So yeah, you could totally see where that's going.
Yeah, I'd be interested on like on the sales side, the actual like email's been there, right? There's plenty of shit that automates email responses and stuff like that, flows. That's all text based. What then the next level is audio, right? So getting people to outbound call to people. Like people are so weirded out when you call people these days anyways, but that could bring in a reemergence of that to the sales process of actual calls. One of my first jobs out of college was selling real estate websites, and I got dropped on the sales side, and we had to dial 100 numbers a day to basically real estate agents, just cold calling them. So why couldn't AI, do that
Easily
for you and then warm it up and go
Yep.
from, especially if you can do the trick, right? Tricky that it's not AI, which I think we're getting close to do that. That would be interesting. And then maybe one layer farther, it's not really a normal way of communicating, but like I've seen in some sales pitches where it's like you do a video of yourself talking to them. Well, why is it not just an AI agent, replicated human
Yeah.
that's reaching out? Maybe it's pulling up stuff about your website or your business, etc. giving you like a personalized video tour or something like that. That could be all possible to do and help on the sales side.
I think we'll just continue to see more of those use cases of like productivity gains and those types of things where it's just a helpful tool and maybe not so much of a replacement.
Yeah. Do you think so? I mean, it's interesting. So if like, obviously it's going to affect the job market. People are talking about some universal base income. I think we're in the fuck zone of it all, where it's like, if that does happen, it's like maybe, too many years for us to benefit from it all. And it's like, wait a second, now that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, we're in this weird transitional time period, at least my timeline. I mean, we're pretty close in age-esque, but it's like, we've missed out on a lot of, I don't know, maybe missed out, but we just like on this crazy journey of like things changing so fast to where like that permanent structure of like, how do we adopt with AI? It's like, it's going to be way past my time when they figure out like, how do we address the whole job shortages because of AI? It's like, who knows what that's going to look like.
I totally think the same thing. Yeah, I've had a very similar thought there. Like
I got to still work now. I still got to do
this.
things, and it's not going to be replaced. And I enjoy doing what I'm doing, but my point is like, I don't know, like my kids or their kids. What does that even look like? Like, what in the hell does that look like? Like, very different than what is right now and what we do.
It's so crazy because you can think too, like your grandparents, what their life was like and working, and then their kids. So like your parents, not that different, like it for sure was, but like not that different. You're still going into the office. You're still doing a commute. You still have to network and shake hands. You still have a job that you're going to hold for 30, 40 years and you're providing for your family, pretty similar. Now it's like, everybody has a supercomputer at all times. We all have AI. We're working remote and there's a different product feature and release at all times. Crypto, like there's just so many innovations that happen where it's just completely different than what it used to be.
We're stuck where we've seen all of those. Like we're part of it, right? We've seen it from like, man, I remember when like the internet first came out, we were like logging on to BBS websites, like back in the day, dialing into computers, etc. I remember still having a pager, not a cell phone. I remember when I had a flip phone, and then I finally got an iPhone, and then like it's just like pre-internet, like answering machines, all that shit. Like it's really interesting generations from cassettes, not really 8-tracks for me, cassettes, CDs, and then it's like, where are we now? It's like it's so fast changing from a technology standpoint that we've got to experience it all. So it's really cool to be able to experience it all, but it's also nauseating. We're like, I don't know what the next thing is going to be. It's hard to track at that point.
But I think too, like it is, but at the same time, I feel like there's, I don't know, things that are going to be around forever. Like I think, who knows if that's the case or not, but innovation's so quick and everything, but there'll still be somebody to be like, I actually want to have like a, person that I trust, have the conversation, help me through this, or quality of work still needs to be there. Timely service, professional branding still needs, like there's still some of these things that need to happen that are core tenets to like servicing a client and running a good business. It's just going to be how that actually happens, and the tools that provide that output and that product are going to be way different.
Yeah, for sure. And I would tell you, man, if I was like a sophomore in high school, and I'm trying to think like what I want to do, I would have obviously a lot of times don't know then too, but it's like I would not have a really optimistic look as far as like finding a passion of what to do, because it's so unknown of, like, I don't know, maybe you'd have to fall into a passion that's something that's not really replaceable by AI or something like that, in the near future. But I think that would be pretty baffling. You're like, man, I don't even know where we're going with stuff.
I know.
Because I would hate to like you get passionate about programming or something like that. That becomes irrelevant. You like marketing, but then that becomes somewhat irrelevant. It's like you would hate to spend that time, especially if you choose the route of like higher education. What you learn in those 4 or 5 years could be completely irrelevant when you go on the outside of it all. To where I don't know if higher education, depending on what you're doing, is really even applicable. to be honest. Like, don't tell me you're going to get a communications degree. That's not going to do anything. You might as well, and probably would do way better, be an electrician or an engineer, or not electrician, electrician or like a plumber, right? Those are high demand services. AI is not going to replace right away. I think it'd be pretty baffling of like the decision tree. It's a very different decision tree from when I was in school. It's like, hey, you got to try to figure out something, higher education, what you want to do, and be. It's like, that's not really the case right now. It's like, I don't know. Those options aren't going to be available potentially.
No doubt.
Like, even if you want to be like a doctor, though, it's like, you don't know where that's going to be out in 5-10 years with AI and stuff. It's like, are you just like a medical prompt engineer? Like, come in, scan me. Okay, here's what it is. You're off. You've got a broken leg. You just put a cast on. Go see the person that does the casts. I don't know.
I definitely hear that, but then I could also see the case the other way. Like, I remember when I was younger growing up and thinking, like, we got these computers, these smartphones, and how crazy everything is going to be and these technologies going to be. But, like, you still need a plumber to come fix your toilet, and you still need, like, a handyman to, like, actually fix shit in your house and build things and, like, do things. And I don't see that going anywhere anytime soon. But, like, when I was younger, I could totally see the case of, like, we're going to have technology and robots that just do all this stuff for us. Nobody's going to have to know how to do any of this stuff. And I don't know. So if I was a younger person, I'd probably be doing something technology-wise using AI. But also, if you go to trade school, you could probably build the craziest plumbing business and, be printing $2, $3, $4 million a year because nobody knows how to do manual labor anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, I could see like both ways.
I think it's maybe more that typical kind of like white collar route is probably one of the biggest impacted thing by AI, for that decision.
Doubt.
So the options of looking at elsewhere are extremely legitimate and fulfilling as well, to where going that kind of white collar route, it's not the not necessarily the preferred route like it was before, but like the common route, at least in my scenario, my background, that is completely changed. And I just don't know if schools are attaching onto that now. I'll find out with my kids of like, where they're not prepping them to just go to higher education or that white collar route. Like, we got to have some like reality here of like, what can you be successful in life and what school can teach you. And that's a whole gripe about public education, which we can get into a whole nother podcast about that one.
Chamath made an interesting point on Rogan recently about, education and younger kids and everything with AI. And he was like, which is, I think, a pretty valid point. Like the education system needs to adjust to kind of shift away from just recall and memory recall to be like, hey, we taught you about this historical event. Now take a test and like memorize all the answers and write them down so you get a good grade. Where now with AI, you could instantaneously get answers to pretty much anything, where that education system needs to shift towards the interpretation of that information. And maybe, hey, this historical event happened and you might not need to remember the exact date it happened, but more so like why it happened and your thoughts on it and maybe how things could have been different. I don't know there's a whole other things that you can kind of go down the line. And I thought that was an interesting point where that system might need to shift towards interpretation of information and not necessarily memory recall.
That's interesting because I could see that on the like history side of things, maybe even science side too. But like even like math, right? Is it too crazy of a concept to think like there could be a point in the future where kids, and I'm going on the extreme far side, they don't really need to know how to do, let's say, multiplication. Because they can just ask like, hey, just multiply this by that, give me my number total. And could they just, instead, because most of that is going to be like recall, right? Like you were saying, like what's, 9 times 9 or what's 6 times 6, right? Maybe instead of like spending the time and energy of just doing the recall on like the simple math like that, you get the answer and you can more apply it to other things that can make bigger and better ideas or concepts.
No doubt about it.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if I'm articulating myself quickly. Like instead
it's more
of like
critical thinking. Like what do I don't know how to like put, the multiplication together, but once the output's there, critically thinking how then you could apply that somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's going to have to be the direction, or it's a big possibility that it can. Because like like a times table. It's a big thing that they spend a lot of times kids teaching, like, hey, know your times tables from, 0 to 12, and like they get graded on it every week. They go through different numbers, etc. But it's all recall. But it's like, how much time are we spending on that concept that we could be spending on something else that's more critical thinking? I don't know what that is. I can't articulate what a real world application of what that be, but I could see that time could be spent elsewhere. And I guess the counter argument is like, well, that's a basic, happen if that goes away and you don't have that auto assist to help you out. You're like, well, then something's majorly happened in the world. Because I feel like that's, it's not going away anytime soon.
No doubt.
It's like, think about spell check, right, man? Like Grammarly and the way you write emails, at least for me, like if I had to go back and like, even now, if I had to do like a handwritten letter,
and like look something up in the dictionary of like how to spell it,
dude, for sure. But how much time am like I could be doing other things and being more productive and more critical thinking.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not sitting here reading my email over and over. Like I remember like early on in the agency career, because I have dyslexia and my emails would go out, and I've actually was like kind of like coached on like, hey, you need to make sure you're reading your communications. I've worked with Ricardo long enough that he knows my communications have gotten way better, but it's not me. It's the AI or software systems that have helped.
Classic.
Like I'm sending out shit where like the client's name is Brian and I'm sending out fucking Brain. Like, dude, so embarrassing, right? Or like the concept comes across and just completely wrong, or I think I've got a letter or a word in there and it's not, and it misses the context of it all. And you're like, oh man, that's just embarrassing email. So I would spend so much time rereading emails or copying and pasting them and having them dictate to myself so I can hear them differently to where now I don't have to worry about that stuff most of the time because I'm using Grammarly or ChatGPT prompts that I have that help kind of make my concepts better. I still put my own spin on things itself, but that anxiety and time of just sending out communications, I'm not wasting time. I'm being more productive. I'm being more critical in the way I'm coming across. So it's the same concept about like this math concept with AI, teaching it in earlier to where it could be a very simple thing where like, dude, kids don't have to learn multiplication. Hell, you could make it to even the farther side, addition. I don't know, like, because it's going to be integrated into the systems. And so it's an interesting building block of things. I mean, shit, back in the day, a lot of people didn't even know how to read. They still survived because they're doing other things, So I think that education system, to your point, I'll have to listen to that podcast. It's on my list to do.
It's an interesting point there. And I feel like that's a really good, like, how you framed it there with how spell check and some other things have like truly helped. It's just like a tool that just helped there. So instead of you spending time of like the nuance of how to do whatever, just use a tool, and then you could focus on the output and focus on other things. I feel like that's a positive take. I do got to run. Maybe we like end it there of like,
yeah, I got to run here
like,
too.
Hey, it's going to be a tool. It's going to be helpful and not like a complete, job killer and like the end of everything. So I think that's a good positive place to call it there.
Yeah, right on, man. I know we were a little all over the place again on this one, but I like it. It's a stream of consciousness. It's good 100%. Stuff. All right, cool. We'll catch up. Thanks, everyone.